When I came to St. Scholastica, I came in 1937 as a junior in college. And I was a music major. And as a music major, those of you who are music majors know that you take lots and lots and lots of classes. So I took 22 credit hours all 4 semesters that I was here. And in addition to the ones that you took for credit, at that time, we had to take a class in sight singing and a class in ear training, and we had to take chorus, and we had to take orchestra. And all of those were without credit. So that was in addition to the 22 credits. So we were kind of busy. And besides that, I waited on table, and I worked 20 hours a week. So I didn't have a lot of free time. And at that time, we didn't do a lot of things off campus. Most of what we did was on campus, partly because we were busy, partly because we didn't have a lot of money. And so we had to find our entertainment right here. And a lot of that was thinking of, when I think about it now, about the rules and regulations that we had. It was a good deal of time spent trying to get around those rules and regulations in the little time that we had to do that, but we managed somehow. I used to look curiously. I had never known nuns before I came here as a junior, and so I was kind of curious, and I used to watch these nuns and what they did and what I'd see them doing in the halls. And of course we had a nun for a prefect on each floor. And I noticed that the nuns, when they would knock on our doors or anybody's door, they would always do it with a ring. And so I thought that was a pretty ordinary thing to do. And I remember that we had study hour every night. From 7:30, we had to be in our rooms at 7:30, and you had to be either in your room or in the library. I should say you were supposed to be either in your room or in the library from 7:30 until 9:30. And then at 10 o'clock, your lights had to be out. And Sister Elaine was our prefect, and she would come to each room, and then she would come in to say good night, to see if we were there in bed. And so if you had studying to do, well, you had to either get a permit to stay up late and study, and then you'd have to go out in the hall so you wouldn't be disturbing a roommate. My roommate would take her lamp with an extension cord into her closet and a pillow and her books, and so she would study in the closet. And I remember that one of those nights that I wanted to go to talk to Sister Martina about something. I don't remember what I was going to talk to her about, and it was probably during this time of study hour. And I went down to her studio, and what I didn't think, I don't think I really realized that at that time the place was pretty crowded, because when I came, the only building on campus was Tower Hall and the old gym, which is now the little theater. And everything happened in Tower Hall. The nuns lived there, the students lived there, the high school students lived there, the classrooms were there, so everything happened in Tower Hall. And at the time it was very crowded. Stanbrook and the chapel were just starting. They were just in the process of being built. And so I went down to Sister Martina's studio, and I knocked with my ring. And Sister Martina came to the door undressed. I had never seen a nun. Well, and I was so embarrassed, and I didn't know what to do. I just went back to my room. The next day, I had to go to class because I had her for several classes. I went to class and I could not look at her. I, I looked at the ceiling, I looked at the floor, I looked at the window, but I could not look at her. And either that night or the next night, I don't remember which, I was in the practice room, and the practice rooms were down actually where my office is now on first floor in that corridor. Those were practice rooms down there. And so I was in one of those practice rooms, and she came in and she sat down and she said, "Now you don't have to be concerned, dear. That's just all right. Just don't worry about it." She was just really very nice about it. But I never tried going down to any of those music studios after that. Uh, every once in a while, you know, you had to have a snack of some kind during that study hour. What we used to do is to pound on our radiator, and then some of our classmates who lived I lived up on fourth floor, and there were people who lived below us who were also in our class, and so we would pound on the radiator and then open our window, and they would open their window, and we had a rope with a basket on. And we would lower that rope, and if they had any food, then they would share it with us. And it worked the other way around, too. If they knocked on the radiator, we'd open our window and see if we couldn't give them some food. Sometimes what my roommate and I did, we had a little table between our beds, and so for our little snack, we'd get everything ready before we had to have the lights out so that we could have our snack after the lights were out with what was on the table between us. And one time when we were coming back from one of our breaks, in fact, sometimes we used to even come back a day early. I'm sure the nuns appreciated that. But we used to come back early just so we'd have time for ourselves to do whatever we wanted to do. And it was never to go downtown. It was just that we could, I don't know, talk and whatever we talked about, I don't know, but we always had plenty to talk about. And this one time, we planned that we would have a little feed after lights out, and we invited Sister Martina, and we invited Sister Alice, who was the dean at that time. And we were going to have this about 10:30 at night. And we had all the food in a suitcase, and the trunk room, because nobody had cars, and you had your trunk shipped, and there was a trunk room down on ground floor. And so earlier, one of us took the suitcase down, and that would not be out of place because the trunk room was down there, and this was right after vacation. And so the suitcase of food went down, and after the lights were out, we went down to this room, little tiny snack room down on ground floor right near the home ec department. And Sister Alice did not come. Sister Martina did come. And only after I entered the convent did I find out that she had gotten into a little bit of trouble for joining these students after hours, after all, that was encouraging them to do not what they should be doing. And so I didn't find that out. But we managed to find things to do. I think I spent a lot of time down in the music classroom, was that last room on fourth floor. We spent a lot of time down there just listening to music and doing whatever we wanted to do down there, but we didn't have a lot of time to do anything else. And I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm sure I could count on one hand the number of times I went downtown in the 2 years I was here. I did go to the symphony. We used to go to the symphony in the old Armory building, which was a big barn of a place, but it was fun to go to the symphony. And another time that I got to stay up a little bit later is when one of my friends who played in the symphony And so when she would go to symphony practice, I would go and sit in the main entrance there of Tower Hall and wait for her to come back and let her in, because of course the doors were locked. And as I said, the rules were there, and so you had to have permission for almost everything you did. One of the things that happened that was a very serious thing is that we used to have convocations every week. And at that time, we had no auditorium. We had our convocations over in the gym. And one convocation we were, I don't remember what the convocation was about because we had them every Thursday. But at that convocation, in the middle of it, at some point, Sister Alice came in and she was practically in tears to announce to us that there had been a terrible tragedy, that the scaffolding had fallen over where they were building the chapel, and 3 men had been killed in that fall. So that was a very serious time for us. It was a hard thing to think about. But for the most part, we were very happy doing what we did right here on campus. We walked to Maryglade a lot, and there were some Franciscan nuns in school who were our friends, and they used to often go up to Maryglade and they'd sit on the rocks to make their meditation. And so we'd give them a certain amount of time, and then we would come up behind them and let them know that it was time to quit the prayers now and to have some fun. We used to, so I have lots of really, really happy memories of those 2 years that I spent here.